PFF's 2019 draft guide is available now. Stats, charts, profiles on almost 600 players with data on many more. This is the most comprehensive guide you'll find this draft season, with the only people who watch every player on every play of every game of the college football season. Get yours for as little as $9.99, all part of PFF Edge or Elite. Head to ProFootballFocus.com right now and sign up.
Mike Renner here, breaking down Steve Palazzolo's mock draft number 4, not 4.0 because that naming convention's stupid, but number 4 with Steve Palazzolo. So Steve, tell us exactly how you go through creating your mocks.
Yeah, I do it differently from everyone else, even differently from how you do it, Mike.
Yes.
I'm trying to say, okay, I'm the GM of all 32 teams. Here's who I would pick. So it's not always going to look like your traditional mock drafts, and there are some big notable names that are not in my first round. So it's more of an exercise about player value and team building rather than a prediction of what's going to happen.
Yeah, so this obviously uses the PFF board, what Steve would do with that board, and that's why you'll not see someone like Montez Sweat on here, who we don't have in our top 50 players, who, when it all is said and done, probably going to be a top 10 pick because of how athletic he is, because of the potential there, but not on this board. But let's get right to it. Arizona Cardinals, number 1 pick, Kyler Murray. So are they trading Josh Rosen, or are they keeping both of them in this scenario here?
So in this scenario, I think, if I was the Redskins general manager, because I am the general manager for all 32, I would hypothetically maybe trade number 15 for a Josh Rosen from the Cardinals. I didn't do that in this particular scenario, but I could see something like that happening. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if the Cardinals did keep both players. I don't think Rosen's really lost a ton of value from last year, where he was picked number 10 overall and he was a first-round pick. Yeah. I did a really in-depth discussion with our smart guys, George and Eric, breaking down, they were trying to convince me why Kyler Murray was the right pick. I was already moving in that direction, but that's why I did it. They convinced me. Check out the video on the YouTube channel. Kyler Murray, the right pick for the Cardinals.
Now, if you had a higher grade on Kyler Murray than you had on Josh Rosen, I think it's a no-brainer in my mind. You get the better player. You always take the better player at quarterback. Any incremental change there is worth so much value to your franchise. So I agree.
That's what it comes down to.
Kyler Murray, yes. The pick there at number 1. Number 2 then, obvious, Nick Bosa. This would be, the 49ers would be over the moon at this point if that was what happened.
Yeah, essentially, we think there's 2 real blue-chip defensive players in this draft, guys that you just feel really confident about translating to the next level. So Nick Bosa, not only a great player, but fills that position of need that they've just had for multiple years now, that rush presence off the edge. And then Quinnen Williams to the Jets, the other guy that had the highest grade we've seen from an interior defensive lineman. A good safe pick for the Jets because we feel really good about him translating.
Yeah, I was going to say, so this actually feels like an ideal scenario for 2, 3, and 4 if Murray goes number 1, because they obviously need Nick Bosa. That would be the pick. I feel like no matter, that's the ideal pick for them. And then Quinnen Williams or Josh Allen for the Jets sitting there, both fill a need. They have a huge need there. And then obviously the Raiders, there's 3, like I said, there are 3 guys on the defense side of the ball that are elite, sort of separating from the pack. And then that means the Raiders are going to get one of them.
Yeah, so Josh Allen, our highest graded pass rusher last year. Would love to see him in a scheme that will tap into some of his coverage versatility, but it doesn't matter. Even if you're just sending him after the quarterback a few hundred times a year, he will be able to do that at a high level. And the Raiders had the worst pass rush in the NFL, so that does match up pretty well with what they want to do.
Yeah, so I actually think this realistically has a shot of being the top 4 picks when it's all said and done. But then at number 5, this is where we probably
struggle.
differ.
I don't know. I don't know where to go
pick
here.
Always, because, like we said, these guys we think very highly of, very sure, sort of safe picks. And then number 5, Deandre Baker. We go cornerback because cornerback value, and obviously the Bucs need.
That's my reasoning on it, and there'll be another discussion up on the YouTube channel where I talk with George and Eric about this essential scenario. A guy like Baker, who we have as a top 10 corner, how valuable are cornerbacks? Do you need to just keep finding more coverage players being more important than pass rushers? That's why I went there. I think when you look at all of the cornerbacks that went, Baker at 5, Greedy Williams at 8, Byron Murphy at 9. I think the scheme fits make a lot of sense. I think Baker can do a little bit of everything, play some zone, play some man. Greedy Williams, a great press man corner. The Lions play as much man coverage as any team in the NFL. And then Byron Murphy, the best zone corner in the draft. And that's what the Bills do.
Yeah.
So I like the fits there, but a lot of this is based off this idea that cornerbacks are the second most valuable position in the NFL, Mike.
Yeah. All right, on to number 6, New York Giants, the forgotten man. Everyone's talking about Kyler, Dwayne Haskins, quarterback, Ohio State.
I think realistically we're talking in the draft, the Giants, or if the Jaguars want him, or if a team like the Dolphins or Redskins really want to make up a move to get Dwayne Haskins, there will be trades to get up into that top 5. But assuming everybody stays where they are, I think this is a no-brainer for the Giants. Take a shot on a quarterback. They didn't do it last year. They have an opportunity to get a Haskins who's excellent from the pocket, really good from a clean pocket, has to improve under pressure, but I think this just makes a ton of sense for the Giants.
Yeah, that would be an ideal scenario, but like you said, probably that 5 pick looks like it's up for grabs in terms of trading up for another quarterback, if someone were to do it. Number 7, though, this one's tough. Even on my draft, it's tough to see who the Jaguars are going to pick because the offensive skill positions, not the value not being there, but you go Jonah Williams, offensive lineman, Alabama.
Yeah, I don't like forcing picks, so a lot of people are throwing wide receivers here, like you said, and you don't necessarily go corner there. But they do have Jalen Ramsey and AJ Boye. Not that you can ever have too many corners, but it's just I like the value of Jonah Williams there. I know I want him to play tackle at the next level. They do have 2 tackles locked up. He could start maybe at right guard and then kick out to tackle in the next couple of years. I just think you're getting a very, very good, valuable player in Jonah Williams, and that's why that felt like a difficult pick to select, but I don't hate it for the Jags.
Yeah, we have Jonah Williams as a top 5 player on our board in this class, so that would be, just in terms of player value, that'd be a good pick for them. And you touched on the corners already, but talk about the scheme fits again for the Lions and the Bills, why that makes so much sense for them.
Yeah, so you have Darius Slay on one side for the Lions, Greedy Williams being on the other side. He is the best press man corner. He's got the size and speed to play in that scheme. And then Bills fans, this is my pitch to Bills fans this entire offseason. Just bear with me here because every mock draft has the Bills taking maybe a DK Metcalf or if Jonah Williams falls, they're all picking offensive players because you have to build around Josh Allen, which is true. But my pitch to Bills fans is saying, look, continue to build that coverage unit, which is already one of the best in the NFL. You have Tre'Davious White on one side. Murphy is a perfect fit. They play a lot of quarters. They play a lot of off coverage. That's what he did at Washington. Builds that coverage unit. And then the depth at wide receiver and tight end in this class, you could stock up on those guys in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rounds and still get those offensive players while building that very all-important coverage unit. I'm sticking with Byron Murphy, I think, in every mock. I just love that fit for the Bills.
Yeah, Murphy, not a great combine in terms of testing, but on-field drills, he's so smooth. And like you mentioned, that off coverage, you can't teach the stuff he can do. In-zone coverage would be a perfect fit. I think they might be able to trade down to get him, and that might be what ends up happening in the actual draft, them trading down from that spot because of, like you said, the offensive player value there. But, yeah, we'll see what ends up happening. Number 10, though, Ed Oliver, one of the most hotly contested names in this draft, goes to the Broncos.
Yeah, we've been all over the place with where Oliver truly fits in. I don't want to completely overrate the fact that he came in at 287 pounds, but it was encouraging that he had a little bit more weight than he wasn't 270. That was the big fear. He's got a very good grade against the run through the years. He's very disruptive. When you dig into his pass rush grade, which wasn't great over his 3 years at Houston, you see that he did play a lot of zero-tech nose tackle. That hurt his grade a little bit. When he's in better pass rush situations, he can get after the QB. That was our big concern, but when we dig into it, might actually be worth the top 10 pick, and I like that one for the Broncos.
All right, on to number 11. Again, it's the one that's going to be mocked every single draft. Devin White, linebacker, LSU, goes to the Bengals.
This is, can we draw? Do we have this? Beautiful. That's the one. Devin White. Everybody's going to have.
Star it,
Everybody's going to have Devin White there because the Bengals need speed in the middle of the field. They need a coverage linebacker. Devin White, one of the best ones in the class, improved greatly last year, so I just love that fit for Cincinnati.
All right, on to number 12, Jerry Tillery, Notre Dame interior defender there. What do we like about Tillery to the Packers?
I like deleting this so I can see his name. Tillery, you love Jerry Tillery. You're the guy that's called him a little bit more like our Chris Jones this year. Chris Jones was getting mocked in late first and goes in the early second a couple years ago, but we had him as a top 10 to 15 player in this draft. Jerry Tillery, very similar, a big long frame that can get after the QB. He had the same pass rush grade as Quinnen Williams, who we love, obviously, and if he can add that extra dimension to the Green Bay Packers and their loaded defensive front, I think it's a big win.
Yeah, I think there's sort of a proven track record in recent years for guys like Tillery and DeForest Buckner, Chris Jones, guys who are very tall, very good length, a number of pass rushing moves already at the college level. I think that just translates to the NFL. That's Jerry Tillery.
Very productive in college.
So on to Andre Dillard going to the Miami Dolphins. No QB here. We go offensive line help. Supposedly going to lose Juwan James in free agency.
Yeah, our quarterback evaluations essentially have Kyler, as a number 1 overall pick, Dwayne Haskins as a top 10 pick, and then Drew Lock, Will Grier, Daniel Jones, either late first or into the second round. So I'm not going to have any more quarterbacks here. So I think the Dolphins, I'm not going to reach for a guy. I'm going to just continue to try to build the roster. Maybe one of the best pass protecting offensive tackles in the draft. They're going to lose Juwan James at right tackle. So just continue to add good players and have some patience with the QBs.
Anything here, so you got Diller at 13, Juwan Taylor at 16, but he's going to step in at right tackle, whereas he played left tackle, whereas Juwan Taylor played right tackle at Florida, and he would probably step in there at left tackle if you wanted. Was there any sort of we've seen that it's not easy to make that switch. Would you, if you're the Dolphins, if you had a close grade on these, would you lean to the right tackle?
Yeah, I mean, it was actually a lot of what I thought about with the Panthers, though, too, because you have Darrell Williams, and maybe Juwan just stays. Darrell Williams in free agency, maybe Juwan Taylor stays at right tackle for the Panthers. I think you can consider that if it is a tiebreaker. I do think his prowess in pass protection, Dillard, that was kind of what trumps him a little bit over Juwan Taylor. And then I love the Juwan Taylor fit for the Panthers. Power run blocker, power run scheme. And if he has to replace Darrell Williams on the right side, he could just do that.
Where does Taylor Mouton go then?
Move him to left tackle. We see guys flip.
He did all right in the left.
We see guys flip and have success, though.
All right, on to number 14, Christian Wilkins. More defensive line help there for the Falcons, even though they tag Grady Jarrett, still in need.
More Clemson defensive linemen. They've got Vic Beasley. They have Grady Jarrett, but Christian Wilkins, we've seen him play a bit of an edge role at Clemson. We've seen him rush from the interior, so just, he wins all over the place. He's a little bit like Ed Oliver, who's very good against the run and improved as a pass rusher this year, so I think he'll add a little bit more disruption that Atlanta continues to look for up front.
Yeah. All right, on to 15, Redskins, Brian Burns, edge rusher, Florida State, one of the best testers in Indy at the Combine.
Yeah, and he was extremely productive. He had the 3rd most pressures out of any edge defender in the nation last year, even higher when you take out the playoffs, which, the Redskins didn't, the Florida State Seminoles did not make. So Burns was extremely productive, one of the biggest breakout players last year, and the Skins have some holes off the edge, and he'll pair with Ryan Kerrigan pretty well.
All right, already touched on Taylor. Flip it to the other side here, where another one that we're probably going to mock a lot of, Jeffrey Simmons to the Browns. They're obviously already been linked to them, and we're saying the injury at this point, not that big a deal. It happened early on in the process. People recover, modern medicine, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and this is accounting for the injury because Simmons might be in this range for us otherwise. But accounting even for the injury, the fact that maybe he does miss a little bit of time this year, has a chance to come back. Myles Garrett needs some help up front. Simmons is a good fit. Even just, the real life rumors are that there is, some interest there from the Browns, and I think it would be great value at 17.
All right, on to 18, where it's always going to be O-line for the Minnesota Vikings. That's just how big of a need it is. Dalton Reisner, K-State tackle. This actually, the more I think about it, is I think the best O-line fit to them. It ends up being Reisner.
Yeah, and he was a right tackle at Kansas State, did play center 1 year. I do think he has the versatility to play all along the offensive line. And if you are the Vikings, you just get good offensive linemen, figure out where they have to go. Reisner only gave up about fewer than 30 pressures over 4 years at Kansas State, which is absolutely fantastic. And he's just big and strong and has a chance to be a very good one.
I like it because of the NFL readiness of him versus someone like Cody Ford in terms of flipping them into guard. I think Reisner could do it right away, be productive. Ford, I think, might be a little bit more of a transition, so that's why I like that pick there. On to 19, it's the classic PFF pick, DK Metcalf to the Titans, one where probably won't get there realistically in real life, but we have questions that we're not saying he's a top 10 player in this class. That's why he's at 19.
Do you think DK is definitely going top 10 to 15? Is the NFL going to be that enamored with him?
I think it's going to be tough for him with someone like the Jaguars, someone like the Bills, with how much they need wide receiver help for him to fall out of that.
I can see that, but I'm also playing, me being the GM, I'm also playing this as I like the wide receiver class. I do think that there's depth, and we'll see some receivers in the late first round, and I think there's going to be good receivers going into the second round. I also look at DK's best fit. I keep calling him Martavis Bryant, a deep threat that needs a complementary receiver who can maybe catch a high volume of passes, and who better than the guy I called jokingly a future Hall of Famer, Corey Davis with the Tennessee Titans. You pair him with a guy like Davis that could be more of the possession receiver, Metcalf, the stretch the field guy. I mean, that is a huge win, I think, for the Titans at 19.
Yeah, that is the interesting thing about Metcalf that's sort of, I think, gotten swept under the rug is he's not, I wouldn't put him in the number one wide receiver category, do it all, run the full route tree. He's more the complementary guy in an offense, my opinion. He's the downfield guy that, you take the home run shot to, but he's not going to catch 100 balls a year. I just don't think that's who he is as a wide receiver, but obviously still a ton of value in terms of the deep ball being the most valuable ball in the NFL. So I do think that that would be a nice fit. If it does come to that, if he does drop 19, I would be hard-pressed to see them pass on him.
And that's where I think that value is. I think that's where if you did take a Martavis Bryant at his peak, that's where he would go.
All right, on to 20. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside to the Steelers. We're assuming Antonio Brown, no more there.
Assuming Antonio Brown's moving on, Arcega-Whiteside, a guy I think we're a little bit higher on than most. He's very good getting off the line of scrimmage. Not the smoothest route runner, but he does know how to get open. He's just fantastic with his body control and ability to just box out, shield defenders. So I think that's also a good fit for Big Ben. Big Ben likes to give guys chances in those contested situations, and he'll win more than he'll lose.
Yeah, I think that's what they wanted last year with James Washington. I think Arcega-Whiteside's a little better prospect than Washington was. I'd be happy with him there. On to 21, Clelin Ferrell to the Seahawks. This used to be the Ja'Kai Polite pick until he bombed at the Combine. But
Polite was a good fit, yeah.
A little better Combine than Polite, so he goes 21 to the Seahawks.
Yeah, and he had a solid pass rush grade last year, too. I don't think he was ever as good as maybe the top 10 hype, but when you pair him with Frank Clark, who just got franchise tagged, it's very important for the Seahawks. Their pass rush grade has gotten worse and worse since their Super Bowl year of 2013, their Super Bowl win. So they need to get that pass rush back on track, and I think him and Frank Clark make a pretty good pairing.
All right, 22, Devin Busch, assuming no C.J. Mosley is probably he's C.J. Mosley out the door, Devin Busch comes in, replaces him. A little more athleticism there.
Add the speedy linebacker like Busch, flies around the field. Love what he does as a blitzer. The Ravens have one of the more versatile schemes. They'll move their linebackers around. They love to blitz and at least create some indecision for the quarterback, and I think Busch brings that kind of versatility.
Yeah, Busch definitely seems like a Ravens type of linebacker, I'll say that. On to 23, Cody Ford. This is the one we have him staying at tackle here, I assume, with the Texans?
Yeah, and worst case, you do kick him into guard, which we've said we could evaluate him as a tackle or a guard, but my theory on tackles, guys that have played reasonable at tackle at the college level, at least give them a shot at the NFL level, especially if you're Houston and you have this massive need for anybody that can pass protect, particularly at tackle. Give Cody Ford a shot to protect Deshaun Watson.
What they've been trying at tackle hasn't worked, so maybe try a guy who people reject at guard. Maybe let him take a shot at it for once. All right, on to 24. We'll do 24 and 27 together here. The two Raiders picks. One might end up going for Antonio Brown, but we got two Raiders picks, Amani Oruwariye, Penn State corner, T.J. Hawkinson, Iowa tight end. Yeah,
so another piece on the defensive side of the ball to pair with Josh Allen. Oruwariye has very good size. Reminds me a little bit of Aqib Talib with the size and the way he breaks on the ball and off coverage. He moved, I think, better than expected at the Combine and some of the testing drills.
Maybe you expected. I expected it.
You expected it. You saw it. But for a guy that size, very, very impressive. So I really like Oruwariye. And then Hawkinson, I think it was a little overblown that he was going to be a top 10 type of player. I think when you put mock drafts together, you just have this like rogue tight ends that guys like to slot in when a team doesn't have a great need.
Right, yeah.
Hawkinson's not, I don't know if he's an elite tight end, but he's very, very good. He's the best all-around tight end in this class. Can run block a little bit, and our number 2 receiving grade in the nation last year.
Yeah, this is, to me, where you start drafting tight ends just because of, one, the indecision, how so few teams utilize tight end that much in their offense that they're going to be worth a top 10 pick. And again, there's a lot of different guys in this class that have a ton of athleticism, including his teammate, Noah Fant. So we'll see where he ends up going come draft day. Number 25, though, one of my favorite prospects in this draft, A.J. Brown, Ole Miss, the forgotten Ole Miss wide receiver, tested well himself, 226 pounds at the Combine.
He is a little forgotten because there were guys like Metcalf, his teammate, who were bigger and faster, and guys like Arcega-Whiteside, who might be a little bit better in contested situations. But A.J. Brown's just really solid across the board. We've seen him win from the slot. We saw him win outside when he needed to do that last year. So really like his production at Ole Miss, and I like the fit with the Eagles adding another weapon on the outside.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he fits that sort of bigger wide receivers that they like in Philadelphia. On to 26, Justin Lane, a name moving up our board the more we watch the Michigan State cornerback.
Yeah, and Lane is one of those guys where if I was building a board for the Indianapolis Colts, he's in the first round mix.
Yeah.
If I'm building a board for maybe the Patriots or a team, or maybe the Chiefs or a team that's playing more man coverage, he's going to be a little bit lower, but he has excellent zone skills, excellent length, former wide receiver, good ball skills. I think he fits the Colts scheme extremely
Cover
well. They
two.
play more zone
Yeah.
than any team, a lot of cover two, and it's just a great fit for what they need and what they do.
All right, on to number 26, Nasir Adderley, Delaware safety. You get the free safety to pair with Derwin James. 2 chess pieces.
That's it. The free safety in that cover 1, cover 3 scheme. A couple years ago, I kept giving them Malik Hooker, that classic free safety, and I think Adderley is a great fit, and continue to build that coverage unit in Los Angeles, not San
the
Diego.
other safety there definitely was an issue for the Chargers throughout the year. It is a need. All right, on to 29, where we give the Chiefs Taylor Rapp, the Washington safety.
This is where I was debating, we have a bunch of corners who are kind of second-round type of players. How far do you elevate those corners because
Chiefs,
you have such a need to just improve your coverage unit? I think Taylor Rapp is less of a reach when you compare him to those corners. I do think he's a back end of the first-round type of safety. He could do a little bit covering the slot, play in the box, play deep. I love his ability to just add that movable chess piece on the defensive side of the ball.
Tested very well in Indy in his own right. On to 30. My guy, Andy Isabella, Massachusetts wide receiver, fastest 40-yard at the combine of any wide receiver there. 4.31.
4.31. So he's the guy that looks like a slot receiver that has an opportunity to play on the outside. Your comparison, Brandon Cooks.
Yes.
Not a bad one. Brandon Cooks has been an outside receiver and a deep threat at the NFL level. I still think Isabella could learn to do some stuff from the slot, but maybe he's more of a vertical slot. Either way, you just add in playmakers to the Packers, and a deep threat with speed for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah,
that's how you maximize his
He's
ability.
short, not small. 188 pounds still at 5'7". He can get open down the field. I think he'd be a good addition to the Packers. That's a nice little draft there with Tillery and Isabella in the first round. Impact players. On to 31. Elgton Jenkins, Mississippi State center, our favorite interior offensive lineman in this class, if you're not counting the other big boys as interior linemen. Our favorite center, Mississippi State center, a big need there with John Sullivan really sort of taking a downhill dive at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think in previous mock drafts, the value for the Rams has been at edge, which is a need, and there are a few players like Zach Allen who goes at 32, but in this case, I think solidifying that spot that is vacated by John Sullivan, the offensive line has been so important for the Rams' success, the run game, the play-action game, so Jenkins gives them that center for the future.
Yeah,
10-year starter, right?
And I think he's NFL ready as well from that perspective. Could step in and be an upgrade. On to 32, Zach Allen, Boston College edge. I mean, that's Patriots fans would just
classic
love
Patriots
it.
pick right
love it.
here.
A white defensive end from BC. What more Patriots can you get there?
I have to say, I debated the 2 quarterbacks that we don't necessarily love as top 10 picks, but Will Grier from West Virginia and Drew Lock from Missouri. If you talk about developmental quarterbacks and getting that 5th year, I think there's a good fit there. I almost went that way, but I think Zach Allen, if they do end up losing Trey Flowers in free agency, Zach Allen has a similar skill set where he has the size to move around the defensive front, to push the pocket, to play the run pretty well. So a classic Patriots pick. He really improved as a pass rusher this year.
I was going to say they covet that versatility, and he can play edge, can play 3 technique at a high level both places. So yeah, if they do lose Trey Flowers, that would seem like a good sort of replacement for him. There you have it, though. Not the worst mock draft Steve's ever done. Probably not the best either, but I did like the Packers pick, so I can't hate on it too much. Make sure to go to ProFootballFocus.com to see Steve's write-up for all 32 picks.